Lexi, and wow, my talk, I think, follows so beautifully from yours, and we didn't even talk to each other before this, so this is great. I'm here to talk to you today about how to manage a passionate team, and I think, some of the tools that I'll offer here really speak to exactly what Shelley said, so without further ado. I'll start with a little bit of background on me. I currently work for Zipline. We make aircraft to deliver medical and other supplies to hard-to-reach areas, and lately, less hard-to-reach areas. We're expanding. Previously, I was at GitHub, working in trust and safety and other community-building features, and before that, I was in college, a little pre-med kid interested in emergency medicine. So I have always wanted to be at the intersection of technical interventions and emotionally hard human challenges, and that has deeply informed my feelings on this topic. So I'll start with a little story here, which I think will probably resonate. Have you ever been on a long slog of an on-call shift, just issue after issue after issue, the pager's going off all night, and by the end, everything looks like an urgent threat? Like you get a text from your mom, and it's like, I was once online for 24 straight hours monitoring an issue that was happening during AWS reInvent, a giant conference, because I had absolutely incorrectly assumed that it was locking 20,000 people completely out of our service. After I got a full night's rest, I rolled off and I actually asked the reporter of the issue how many people had reported a problem to them. And he said, 1. And the person who reported it didn't actually seem that concerned. It was not even that big a problem for them. So that was cool. So I've noticed this pattern repeatedly over my career so far. I have found myself super lucky to be on teams that care deeply about the work they're doing. But on the flip side of that, I've seen a lot of burnout, especially in younger team members and people who are really just giving their all to their job right now. It's really cool to be in that environment where everyone's passionate, but it's also, people forget to care for themselves, as we've heard. So that leads me to this talk, how to manage a passionate team, and specifically how to make sure your team is spending their energy the right way. So that's on the right things, in the right amounts, at the right time. And so at this point, in writing this talk, I Googled stress versus passion. I was like, is there a cool little soundbite here? And it turns out there is. So Simon Sinek says, working hard for something we hate is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. And I thought that was pretty neat. It tracks with my own career, but it's not, wildly actionable. No offense, Simon. But even when you're working hard for something you love, things still get stressful, like I can confirm. And I know we're very aware of this, but we're also in incredibly stressful times. I think everybody has said that today, and it's true. Economic conditions are challenging, and especially recently, global events are extremely challenging. So I decided to focus this talk on how do we optimize for passion. I figured if I get the word optimize in there, it should be accepted. And how do we stay focused on the things we're really here for? So an interesting thing I realized as I was writing this talk was that sort of the 3 things that I'll say are key in optimizing for passion over stress are also the 3 hardest things when you have people who care a lot about their job. So what exactly is that? Number 1 is clear priorities. So making sure tickets are prioritized appropriately before being worked on. Shelley talked about interrupt work. That's a big problem. 2 is setting up clear boundaries. So once you have the priorities in place, making sure they're actually respected and making sure channels of communication are sort of sorted correctly. And finally, rotating your first responders. So that not me being online for 24 straight hours, but rotating folks in and out of high intensity situations and really making sure, especially for your over-engagers per se, like that they are not still on when they're supposed to be off. So diving into each one of these, I'll share specific communication I have found works in each one. So effective prioritizing is a huge topic. I'm not going to dive into that per se, but what I want to talk about is a way to make sure that you at least understand the priority that is in front of you. So building the muscle in each team member, not so much for yourself, but in the team members for asking, is this my priority right now? This is different than saying, like, is this important? Because especially in our lives today, I think everything feels important. And doing the type of work that I've done so far, like, everything feels important all the time, and that's really hard. It's hard to say no to a stakeholder who comes and asks you. But I'm not actually advocating for saying no. Rather, I'm advocating for saying, when do you need this by? So often people come to us and they ask us, can you get me this thing? And we want to be helpful and we want to be like, yes, here, let me just interrupt whatever I was doing to get you this thing. But saying, when do you need this by, has been really, really helpful for me. And often it's, people don't need it for another few days or another few weeks even, or maybe by next quarter. And instilling that in your team to just ask that every time can be really helpful. Second is boundaries. So like I said, once you've set those priorities, how do you make sure that they are actually followed? So I'm not actually saying like you must sign off at 5 p.m. I'm not saying it's 5:01 p.m. and it's time for me to be done today, but and working on the weekend can be warranted. But what's hard and also necessary is making sure that whatever boundary you do set with stakeholders is actually followed, because that is what ensures that communicating with your team is a consistent experience. So I think this is best illustrated with an example. My team has an SLA of 10 minutes for incident pages, but below that, we're really trying to route the first responder, like time-sensitive but not emergency type things, through our ticketing system and not our chat system. The world we really want to get to is chat works for talking about issues, for having conversations about things, but it is not where they should be raised. If you need us urgently, especially on the weekends or after hours, you need to page us. We do not guarantee that we monitor chat outside of business hours, right? The problem is, my team is a bunch of people who are used to urgent issues coming in via chat. That's just how the company has operated for many years. There are also a bunch of people who, like I said, care a lot, and so they tend to monitor chat on the weekend voluntarily, myself included. So this tip is actually from a teammate of mine. It's not mine originally, because she had to say this to me. She said, Lexi, hey, I saw you responded to something over the weekend that was just raised in chat, something that wasn't actually an incident. Two things wrong with that. One, it wasn't actually that urgent, so I broke tip number 1, priorities, asking when do you need this by. And 2, when you do respond to chat over or during off hours, people might start to trust that and forget that they really do need to page us when something is urgent. Next time someone tries to raise us for something that is urgent, they do it via chat, we miss it, everyone's sad. So this is something I've seen firsthand and is also really quite important. Finally, the third principle that is key for managing a passionate team, in my experience, is rotating intensity. So this goes back to me for 24 hours straight being online and just my quality of decision-making plummeting. My favorite way to think about this actually comes from Below Deck, if you're familiar with the love to hate to love to watch type reality show where young adults work as deckhands, stewards, and chefs on a mega yacht chartered by very rich people. Their days are an interesting mix of high-stress guest demands, high-stress safety threats, and parties late into the night. But one thing that leaders on these yachts are very clear about is that they're operating with extremely limited crew. You only got the people on the boat. And in order to have enough folks to be up with the early birds and down with the late night owls, they need to rotate their staff. So they communicate this really clearly, even in tense times, even when they have a really stressful dinner service, they still send the third, like even with 2 stews are dealing with the stressful dinner service, they will still send the third steward down to go to sleep so that that person is up in the next morning, because they might have to start at like 5 a.m. the next day. Partially because I'm not the only one on my team that watches this show, and partially because people are just used to me on my team now, I've adopted this pattern of communication with my own teammates. So especially for my younger team members who care so much about being good about their jobs that, if you say something like, oh, you can sign off if you want, that person is absolutely not going to sign off. And then you're going to have a super tired person the next day. When you need them, they're not going to be around or they'll be burnt out. So what I've actually said is, hey, Sam, I need you to actually roll off this incident response. I need you to go down, which is what they say on the show, so that you can roll back on when the person who's actually dealing with this, who's actually on call right now, is themselves exhausted. And that, imperative, obviously I can't tell them to go to sleep, and I'm not really demanding that they sign off, but saying, I need you to go down now so that you are up then, I've found super effective. So just in review, these are my 3 top tips for optimizing for passion over stress and burnout. When you need to make sure that you're prioritizing things effectively, I ask, when do you need this by? And usually people are pretty honest, which is nice. They're not telling me it's today when it's in 3 weeks from now. Setting firm boundaries, the thing that I've had to learn myself and tell my team is that, hey, it's not just your boundaries, it's your team's boundaries. And when you set firm boundaries, we do not respond to chat messages on the weekend, please page us if needed. That helps keep everything sorted. And then finally, rotating intensity. So go down now, your teammate has got it, I need you back on at this time. That's it. Thanks very much.